welcome back to our Grit for Life workshop, Living Wild and Running Free. If you're not familiar with Grit for Life, if you just found us on one of our platforms, you don't know all the other platforms, we are on YouTube. We have a Grit for Life channel on YouTube. And we are on TikTok as Grit Nation. We're on Facebook, Grit for Life, as well as we're on Spotify and iHeartRadio. So just check us out. This is part of our series, our 4-week long workshop on living wild and running free. Our workshops are always different. This is a unique setup. We're doing this different than we've ever done any of our workshops before. We're trying this out. I'm joined by my wife, Katie. This is the first workshop that she has joined me with. We are taking a unique look at what it means to be wild and free. And I've asked my wife to join me because she has a unique perspective from a female's perspective as well as I from a man's perspective. And so we wanted to bring these two. I thought that me trying to do it all myself would not be able to really bring out what I was hoping to bring out in this workshop. And so we did one video, whether we're not really sure. Another thing that we do is a lot of times we will set up these videos. We film them in order. This time we're not. We're just hitting several different topics and how we put them in. So whether I believe you would have already received my interview with my wife, and she's now going to kind of interview me. But if not,
maybe we'll put you first.
Right, we might go first. I don't know, but this is our hope and passion is that through these workshop videos, you're learning to better understand yourself, the steps that need to be taken. We are out in the middle of the Arizona desert, where we are at our property here that we are currently homesteading. We're inside our greenhouse. We were going to be doing some of this outside, but the
wind is wild.
Yes, the wind is wild.
It's free. It does what it wants.
It does what it wants. You
can't control it.
No. We tried to do it outside for a little bit, and after about 4 different attempts in the wind, every time the wind would die, and then it would pick right back up as soon as we started to do a recording. And so, yeah. So we moved it inside of our greenhouse. That's what we're sitting in right now. But yeah, babe. So from the man's perspective.
So I want to know what it means to you to be wild and free.
You know, that's a good question, because getting ready for this workshop, trying to figure out a theme, we always do a theme for our workshops. This really resonated with me. I'm an avid, as you know, I'm always studying, always doing an avid reader or listener to audiobooks. I recently reread the book, Wild at Heart, which for those who've never read that, I would challenge you. I will caveat that with, it is a very religious based book. So if you have issues with anything religious, I would still challenge you to read it and filter through the aspects of that. I am currently listening to a book by, my mind just went blank on his first name, but Crenshaw is his last. He's a representative in Congress. He's a Navy SEAL, and the book's called Fortitude. The book is absolutely amazing, and I do a lot of those books. I listened to one recently from now that I'm on camera, my mind is going great. It's called You Can't Hurt Me, by another former Navy SEAL. It was actually given to me, the audiobook was given to me by a Grit for Life member, and I really appreciate that, Ronnie. And I do not remember his name, but it's You Can't Hurt Me. It's a book by a Navy SEAL. These books have really helped really start focusing, in other books and other studies I've done, and in my own self-reflection. Do I understand what it means to be a man, or do I base my beliefs on how to be a man on society? Or has society given me a false sense of what masculinity is? We hear about masculinity all the time. We hear it from the concept of the really far one side of it, where it's this hardcore man that is tough, drinks beer, works on cars, and which is not me. Versus that toxic masculinity And where do I fit into that picture, and how do I live wild and free? I had asked myself that question. You talked about that when we interviewed you about the self-reflection, and this is going to be a common theme in this series. Where I am today, and I think it changes, but I think the principle remains the same. When I get up in the morning and I look in the mirror, is the man looking back at me the man I want to be? Not what society expects of me, but is it a man that I look at and go, I'm proud to be that man in every aspect of my life, as a husband, as a father, as a motivator, as a human being. Uh and I think a lot of times we, even as men, and I think, I don't know if women really gather that men have our own securities. We have our own fears. And I think sometimes we don't talk about it. And I think that goes back to the society aspect of it. We don't want to talk. We don't have anyone to talk to about it. We don't talk about it with our buds because we don't want to look weak and, like we're struggling. We don't talk about it with our spouses because, again, same reason, we don't want to look weak. And so it's just this internal thing that we sit. And so how do we break out of that captivity and live wild and free? What does it mean? And I think it's a daily process for me, learning that. Um, that daily self-reflection to catch myself. I know you talked about that when I interviewed you. That really resonated with me because it's something that I constantly am having to ask, self-reflect, and stop myself. Where does my principles as a father, a husband, man fit into this? And how do I get to be me? Me. Just me. Not the me that, and I think there's several aspects. I think sometimes we do forget that we do have several different versions of ourselves, and each person we interact with, whether you're male or female, is going to get a different version, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But it still comes down to that, to the core. Am I happy with myself? And that's where I find that freedom to be wild and free.
Okay. How have so you talk about your ability to communicate and self-reflect. How have you gotten to the place, or what are some of the processes that you do in self-reflecting or to get yourself to this point? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's been a long journey. Uh it's been a lot of time unhappy. Um 19 years old, joining the military. Um I was a nerd in high school. I was bullied a lot. I've shared that story on a lot of. I'm not going to rehash that right now. It's not for this time, but I shared that story a lot with Grit for Life. And when I went into the military, I went in with this perspective of what a warrior looked like, and it's that Rambo. My nickname in basic training was Rambo. I had a lot of people that because I'm a bulldog, and society has this image, gives us this image of what a man's supposed to look like, and I knew I wasn't that. Uh, I didn't. I mean, I think I might maybe weighed maybe 145 pounds, 150 pounds when I went in the military. I was skinny. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror not for any other reason other than I knew it's not what I thought society wanted of me. I wasn't a big boy. Growing up in the South, I had a lot of big boys I grew up around. Had a lot of tough guys I worked around. I didn't grow up tough. I didn't grow up. I never worked on cars. Still don't know a lot about cars. that image of a man. Well, he's supposed to know how to fix everything, and he's supposed to, especially growing up in the South, in the country, I had this vision of what I thought a man was supposed to be, and found myself being shoved into captivity and not being able to live myself because I was trying to live what someone else expected of me. Joining the military did a lot of things, but that at the same time it also provided a good cover. Uh, for years in the military, I got to pretend to be the man I thought I was supposed to be. I could go put on the uniform. The uniform was my superhero uniform, and in essence, I mean, I could be manly, and yet I realized when I went home, I was still that little boy. And I think a lot of women out there don't understand that there are a lot of men out there who are still, their heart got hurt somewhere in life. And maybe men, you don't even realize that. I know this is kind of going a long story based on that question, but somewhere along the way, we got robbed and we got forced into this image of what we're supposed to be. But we know we're lying to ourselves because we know we're not living up to that image, and so we become angry. In my early 20s, I was very angry. I destroyed, and I've shared this on Grit for Life before, I destroyed my first marriage. I've shared this with you because I was angry, because I couldn't live up to what I thought I was expected to be. I could put on a false image very easily. It wasn't until probably my late 30s that I had to realize, again, my response is my responsibility. I didn't know that. I didn't understand that concept as in my teens and early 20s. The reason that is such a that's why that's such a motto in my life, is because when I realized that no one else was going to come and save me, no one else was going to be ever satisfied with who I am until I became satisfied with who I am. The only one who is going to be able to save me, the only one that's going to be able to change me, the only one who's going to be able to make me into the man that I needed to be, not the man society expected of me or created this Thor or Iron Man or, these, I know I'm dating myself, Sean Connery's or, I had to look in the mirror and say, that's me. And I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to come to a self reflection, and that came into hitting rock bottom and getting up and saying, what can I change today? Not what can I change for a lifetime? What can I change? And that's where my principles started coming in. By that time, I had already been married twice. I had children. I wasn't being the father that my kids needed me to be. I obviously, my marriages had failed for a lot of reasons, but I had to look at my responsibility. I obviously had not been the husband I needed to be. I didn't want to be that way anymore. And so I started self reflecting, and it took some hard admittance of where I had been wrong. But why had I been wrong? I think a lot of times men will search for that thing they can fix easily, because I think I had to realize that I had to look at the hard thing. I had to do the hard thing. And it doesn't happen overnight. I can go in and if I have a drain that's not working properly, I can go grab Drano and pour it in there or fix the drain really easy and quick, and I feel satisfied with it. When it came to life, it wasn't an easy fix and it wasn't an overnight fix. And I had to be okay with that because I had to look at the long term. The long term is I want to be a man of principle. I want to be a man of integrity. I want to be a man that I could look in the mirror and be proud to be. Not a man that when I looked in the mirror before that, I would look in the mirror and go, if people only knew. And I was scared people would find out that I was a fraud. And women, I would tell you that there are a lot of men out there that have that fear. Being married to you, you have given me the freedom. That's that wild and free. You've given me the freedom to be able to break down. You've given me that freedom to have that communication piece where I can come and go, I'm not okay. Or I'm struggling with this. You've given me that teammate where if I am not strong with something, you step up and you are strong in that. And I think, men, we need to be okay and understand that when the world tries to make it that a man is supposed to be able to resolve and solve everything, that's not fair. And that's not okay. It's okay not to have the answers, as long as you communicate that. There are times that my family knows and my wife knows. I will come to her and I go, I don't know the answer to this.
Well, and I think where you and I have grown together also is coming coming to the understanding through me that when I come to you with the problem, I also don't necessarily need you to fix it
Yes.
for me.
Yes.
A lot of times when I come to you, all I need is for you to listen, and I'm not and originally with us working out a relationship is me coming to you with this and you going, well, okay, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? How do we fix it? And in a lot of my previous relationships, the man has always been, okay, well, what do you want me to do about it?
Yeah.
How do you want me to fix it? And I'm like, I don't necessarily need you to, I just need you to listen. I'm not expecting you to solve my problem for me.
Right.
And I think that through both of our learning and communicating with each other, it has really freed you up to understand that you don't have to solve all the problems.
Right.
And that you can come to me and we are a team, and it's okay for you not to have to carry that burden all by yourself. You don't have to solve all the problems on your own.
Right. And I think that's where, when we talk about even wild and free, is learning, especially if you're in a relationship or looking to be in a relationship. Man, my mind just went blank. Is that aspect that where you can sit there and go, understanding, because society tries to make it either really far women don't need men,
Mm-hmm.
and then men stand up and that woman is just supposed to be by your side and look good, that trophy wife. I think that's where we talk about with our Viking heritage, and we love the Viking culture, stuff like that, and the shield maiden. That is that shield maiden aspect, and that is that warrior aspect of, hey, you come up beside me. I can't fight this battle alone. You come up beside me. Mm-hmm. I'm not need now. If you get wounded and you need to step back, shield wall. I'll protect you. But that doesn't mean you can't do the same for me.
Right.
And you could step up and self-reflecting, to go back, and I know we've kind of way off the thing, but in a way, what I would challenge you men and what I had to learn is this, that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay not to have the answers. It's okay to be sad and admit it, especially being someone who's struggled with PTSD. Having struggled with PTSD, it made me feel less of a man, because I felt that as a warrior, I should be able to handle this. But again, it's because I was raised on John Wayne, Rambo.
They don't get PTSD.
Yeah, and understanding that that's not reality. That's, that again, what society depicts, this manliness, these hunk of like Arnold Schwarzenegger and all these people, it's exactly that. It's a fictitious model that never can be achieved in real life, and that we as men, the warriors, that we don't. My son Ethan was talking to me the other day. We were out here at our property. I even think it was last night. Maybe just, yeah, I think it was the day before actually. And we have a lot of where we have our homesteading. There's a lot of Indian shards and pottery, and he was talking about how finding these pottery reminds him that when you watch a movie, he goes, you have like a Western. He goes, you have the cowboy or the Indian, the Native American, and they're here, and then they get in a gun battle, and then they're here. And or they're leaving New York City and they're getting in a covered wagon, and then they have a skirmish, and all of a sudden they're in California. He's like, you don't realize and remember that there was everyday life that happened. And yes, these wild and free individuals, they lived a hard life and they were hardened. But they didn't just show up one morning in New York and became hardened. They had to learn, and they had lives in between. And this is similar. Growing up in a religious home, we have these Bible figures, these figures in the Bible that, like King David, went and slew Goliath, and then he went and killed all these other people, and they went and did this, and they're raised up to be these superhero people, and you can't live up to that as a man. And then you realize, no, there was a whole bunch of life in between. And as a man, I had to realize that it was okay to cry, as you've seen. I had to teach my boys that. It's okay to not know the answers. It's okay to fail because you're going to, and we learn from that. It's okay to break down. We just can't stay there. So my self-reflection began to say, okay, I'm not going to base it upon what society wanted me as a man. I'm going to base it upon what am I okay looking in the mirror at. So my first thing was, at the time I was not in a relationship. So when I came to that point, so my first was, what do I look in the mirror and say, what is today can I do for my kids? My father taught me that being a father was a long-term investment. So maybe my kids aren't with me right now. And I know there are some single dads out there. I know there's dads who maybe, and I want to talk about this in another video, but I'm going to touch base about it a little bit right now. Maybe you're out there and you're not getting to be involved much in your kid's life. You have two choices. You can say, well, someone's trying to keep me from my kids. Well, your response is your responsibility. You may have limited control over that, so control what you can. What you're doing today may not be able to, your kids may not see it right now. But I went through a time period of my life where my kids weren't with me. I could have given up and just said, okay, I'm not going to be in their life. That's not what a real man does. A real man says, I chose to be a father, or maybe I became a father because of, I wasn't planning on it, but it happened. This child needs me. And so today I'm going to do something, whether it be making myself better, whether it's reading or making myself learning something better to teach my kids, whether it's self-reflecting and learning how to mend my own heart. Same with being a husband. I'm a better husband today for you because I saw the mistakes I had made in my past, and I wasn't willing to remake those. But you weren't even around then. I made those for my future wife. And so that's where that self-reflection, and I would challenge you as men, that's hard. Because again, society tells us we can't be soft. And you have to be hard. I think it's men and women, you have to, don't shirk away from the hard things, but you have to understand that the hard stuff makes us hardened, but we have to have that balance again. We've talked about that balance. You can't run from the hard stuff and be soft and expect life to just be simple, because then when hard things do come, you're going to fold and you're not going to be present. At the same time, you can't be so hard that you forget what it's like to be tender and soft in those moments that need to be. It's that well balance.
And I think what you just said really also resonates with me, because I think that's not necessarily, that little aspect of it is not necessarily male or female. It's just a human thing. In our other interview that we talked about, when you interviewed me, it's our life together over the last few years has been really hard in
Mm-hmm.
a lot of ways. And pulling myself out of it, I have realized that I have also become really hardened in a lot of ways, and having to pull myself back so that I am more tender as well. So I think that goes both ways across gender lines and barriers. And I will also tell you, after having listened to you talk, like, one of the things that I've always loved about you and what attracted me to you is you do have that very rugged, masculine aspect to you. You've got all the uniforms, what girl doesn't love a man in a uniform? But that attracted me to you. But what made me fall deeply and incredibly in love with you head over heels was your ability to self-reflect and your ability to show emotions. Um, I love that about you, that you can communicate what you're going through, what you're feeling. Whereas in past relationships, the majority of the people that I've dated had that wall, that barrier up, and I could never break through it to find out what was really happening in their head, in their lives. And that's where our my past relationships really started to crumble, when I tried to ask and get their perspective and really figure out what their thought process was on stuff. There was that wall, like, no, I'm not supposed to talk about that stuff. I'm not supposed to be upset. I'm not supposed to cry. And it really put that huge barrier in our relationship, because especially me being an empath, I had no way to connect to them. And
Right.
I really appreciate how deeply you feel, and that you have been willing to share your emotions. Like, that to me is so incredibly powerful, and even more attractive than a man in uniform is a man who can self-reflect, admit when he's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
cry when he's sad. There is so much strength in that, and that's so empowering to watch as a female, to watch a man let go, and that it's okay to, like, just watch you be who you are, whether that means you're crying and you're supposed to be masculine. Forget all of that. Like, this is who you are, this is what you're feeling, and it's valid and it's important.
And I think you hit it on the head on your interview, is being authentically you. But, and maybe you're a guy who's like, yeah, authentically means not to cry. That's okay if that really is you. Um, but I think that your family needs to see you, because especially your boys, if you have sons, well, and daughters, your kids need to understand. We try our best to live a very authentic life with our children. They know when things aren't good, and I don't mean because they see us argue. That's not what I'm talking about. What I mean is they know that I get my parents authentically. They know that. They know when we're not having, like, we're having highs or lows. We live authentically. So don't watch this video and think that I'm saying, well, you need to be a cry. No, maybe that's not who you are. Each person has a different personality.
Right.
But you need to ask yourself, am I not being that way because it's what society says is what a man is, or is it because I'm not doing that just because it's not me? You know,
Right.
um, and I think what you hit on real quick, and we're going to wrap this video up because we're running a little long on time, but I want to get this point across too. I think that what you talked about, how that barrier. I think there are a lot of men and women out there, especially in relationships, they have that barrier. The female finally says, "Okay, I love you enough." The wife says, "I love you enough," or the girlfriend says, "I love you enough," or the significant other says, "I love you enough," to where I want to hear your heart, but then the other side says, "I can't," and so then they hit this where they have no passing, or they can't come together, but then they get mad because they say, well, you're not opening up, and the other one's saying, yeah, but you don't really want to know me. And then that's when the fighting starts and the rage starts, and then it just becomes this vicious cycle. Because, or someone comes up and says, I really want to know you, this person says, no, 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 so they back off, and the next time then this person goes, okay, I do want to show you, but this person's now blocked off. And that's again, that goes back to that authentic, wild freeness of you. You have to self reflect. I have to self reflect. And in doing that, then that brings us together because we're both open to hear and to understand, and we could be able to communicate and come together.
Yep.
So I hope that you got something out of this. Your response is your responsibility to be able to truly live wild and run free. What I want you to do is, man, I want you to really write down something that talks about how you are going to self-reflect. Even go to the mirror, and I want you to look in the mirror, and I want you to ask yourself, do I like what I see in the mirror? And if not, I want you to write down what it is you don't like. Are there secrets that you're hiding, that you're scared? When you look in the mirror, you go, if someone only knew really who you are. And then I want you to write some solutions down, some steps that you can start taking. And only you can make that decision because each person is going to be different. But it's going to be really taking a look at. And if you want to reach out to some of us who have gone through this, reach out to us. But for me, it was taking one step at a time. What can I do today to make myself better? And it's not going to be easy. Ladies, maybe you've heard something in here from, you said, wow, what I want you to do is I want you to say, how can I help that man in my life? Father, son, husband, significant other, whoever it is. What can I do to help that man learn to be authentically them, not what society has said? Maybe you write a letter to, if you are married or you have a significant other, going to that significant other and saying, I want some time to talk to you, and I want you to know that I'm okay with you. I want to know you. And maybe use examples. I don't want to know who your father was or what your father expected you to be. I don't want you to society. I want to know genuinely you. And you may not get anything back because right now your significant other, that man in your life, may not know. But start that conversation of saying, I want us to genuinely be us, not what society is saying we should be. Anything else? Your response is your responsibility. Go grit it.